Welcome to the all-new Oasis Amps. Today, we'll be rebroadcasting EV World News. But before we do that, I wanted to show you our refreshed Oasis Amps user interface, both on our website and in our app. But what we're really excited about is the two new features that we are currently developing to add to the app. The rental services, so that you can rent your electric vehicles or any vehicles you have and build a stable in order for you to earn income off a rental, with some features that are not common to the market today. And of course, a new feature is our roadside assistance, with bidirectional charging coming to the Lucid Air and the Ford F-150 and other mobile services that will come to you. Instead of you dying on the side of the road, you could pull over at a restaurant, wait for a charge to come to you. And of course, we'll have more on our newly designed website and app. But now, let's start our show. I was a guest host with David on EV World News.
Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. My engineer, Mike Herzog's on vacation today, so I invited a special guest today, Bobby Primus with Oasis Amps. How's it going today, Bobby?
I'm doing excellent. And I don't have the snow you have, so I'm happy. I can see sunshine and 80 degrees, so I'm
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
well.
There's my weather camera right now. So it was sunshine and 80 degrees here yesterday. Today we have blizzard warnings, and it can be anywhere. Now they're saying it could be up to 10 inches of snow. I mean,
Wow.
it just seems nuts that we were walking around in shorts and t-shirts yesterday. I didn't turn on the air conditioner in the house, but this is just crazy. Bill was
Yeah.
talking yesterday that um, we were at like 69% wind energy yesterday, and today it's way windier than yesterday, but I don't think I have solar, so we're pretty much a green podcast anyways, but it's funny I don't know how iced over my solar probably is. Once it gets iced over, it's pretty useless. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but it usually takes a day or two for it to clear up,
Clearly.
but it just, it's kind of humorous to see that going on. But yeah, you can really see the air moving, all that snow just chugging along there. Yeah, you
I'm
don't get
almost
that
sure we
very
won't
often.
have snow here tomorrow, though. We won't be having snow here tomorrow. And if it do, things are a lot worse than we think.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're having some serious climate change down in Florida if you're getting this snowstorm hits you. Well, it's kind of blowing your way though. It is going
Yeah.
from north to south, so
Yeah.
you just never know. It's going pretty quick too. Yeah, I don't know. It could probably hit about next 24 hours. It should move about 1,000 miles your direction.
Wow.
So
Well,
you,
I
you,
still
you
got my New York snow parkers and sweaters and boots, so I'm ready to go if it is.
you're
I won't
good.
be
You're
out in
you're
the
ready.
cold.
Yeah. So, anyways, I'm going to start out talking today about somebody talking about the theory that EVs can't road trip. So, a gentleman named Robert Hayes was talking about this on LinkedIn and saying he drove his F-150 Lightning. He went on a tour of national parks for 12 in 1 week. He visited 12 states, traveled 5,438 miles. Now,
Wow.
that's a lot of driving.
That's a
Holy crap.
lot of
I
time.
wouldn't want to. That's
No.
about 450 miles a day. I wouldn't want to do that.
Mm,
That,
mm,
no,
I'm not.
but anyways,
That's a
um,
young man's game.
yeah, yeah, but 5,400 miles in 12 days. So he said there's nowhere to charge. He went to Big Bend National Park. It's a pretty park, pretty remote. Splendid isolation is the park's tagline. But with the Ford mobile power cord and a NEMA 14-50 outlet at our rental, charging was no issue at all. So they had no stress from that.
Yeah.
Public chargers aren't reliable. To my surprise, across every charging session and 7 different network providers, every single charge was successful and drama-free. No moving from stall to stall, no plugging in multiple times, no stress. Now, that's not usually the experience we hear about, though, is it? So I think maybe this guy got a little lucky, because you and I both know that it's about 20% of charging attempts are unsuccessful across the country on non-Tesla networks.
Tesla. Yeah, Tesla's very high availability. They're very rarely down.
Now, he's on a Ford F-150, which has access to the Tesla supercharging network. Okay,
Right.
so I don't see him actually specifically ever discuss the NACS Tesla supercharger network on here, but public charging is too complicated. So he used 7 different charging networks throughout those 12 states, but every single stop was in Ford's Blue Oval charge network. So he had no extra apps, accounts, or signups needed. So he had no extra stress. And I thought
That's
that
where
was
it has to go.
that's
To be
something
simple.
I'm glad to hear that Ford has been able
Yeah.
to get something going there, because he even had Jim, can't remember his last name, the CEO of Ford, Farley, Jim Farley.
Farley.
Yeah, he did a road trip in an F-150 Lightning, and he had some challenges,
He did.
you know,
Yeah.
and very few challenges match what, though, when this last year's Secretary of Energy, Jennifer Granholm, tried to do a road trip in EVs, and they got in trouble because somebody called the police on them because they were having gas cars block the chargers so that when she got somewhere, she could charge up.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Your people
It
called the
don't work like
cops.
that in real life. That's crazy.
Yeah. So that one was kind of funny, but yeah. And he says, I've driven EVs across the US and Canada multiple times, around Europe and around town. EVs are go anywhere, do anything vehicles. The Lightning isn't just an EV, it's an amazing truck, an incredible road tripper because it's electric. And without fail, there's a conversation starter moment when the EV rolls up to the trailhead parking lot, especially with a license plate from half the continent away. Man, you know, we did a story about a year ago about a guy, I think he's a German, that had at that time his 2014 Tesla Model S had 1.2 million miles on it. And
Wow.
all he does is road trip. He drives a few hundred miles every day all over Europe, but he'd been to Asia, he'd been to Africa, and he'd been all over in his 2014 Model S. And it was interesting because he was consistently having to replace a battery every 300,000 miles.
That's awesome in general, but this just seems like a lot.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
you wouldn't get that out of an ICE engine. You wouldn't get 300,000 normally out of an ICE engine, especially without the maintenance and the, timing belts and all that other stuff, that maintenance that's required. But yeah, to keep replacing. And I wonder if he ever replaced any of the motor units, any of the engine units.
he did. There
He
was
did.
one of them, the rear motor. So it has, his was, I believe, a dual motor model, but the rear motor in that edition Model S had issues. And we're talking a 2014. So we're talking 11 years ago. People like to bring this stuff up, but he had 9 of them replaced in the 1.2 million miles. Okay. But he kept getting refurbished units, and they kept failing about every 150,000 miles.
Wow.
So, I mean, when you think about that, that's really not bad
at all.
No, it's not. And so it's just it's exciting to see some of that stuff, but it really, Tesla says that their current batteries are supposed to last for 400,000 miles on like a Model 3, and the ones that are on like the Model Y long range and the Model X and the Model S, they're supposed to last for like 500,000 miles now. And
And I used to be a used car dealer in North Carolina and in Florida. And sometimes we'd get stuff from the auction, Odessa or Mannheim, and it purrs like a kitten. And you take it home and you do an oil change on it, and the engine drops out the bottom because they put sawdust in the oil to quiet the knocking.
oh
And
no,
so, yeah, I mean, just crazy stuff like that all the time. And so, I've had some rebuilt, I've had mechanics rebuild them, I've bought remanufactured, and they have never been as good as the manufacturers because these people don't build the same type of engine all day long, all the time. And so what we started doing was getting them from, IAA insurance, auto auction, from wrecked vehicles, taking the engine out and put it back. Then we know it's manufacturer good, good because the car was wrecked, but the engine is fine. You have to check some things, but and those engines or rebuilds almost never lasted 24,000 miles before they would destroy themselves. So to
right,
get 150,000 miles out of a used electric motor is phenomenal.
right.
You can't do that with ICE.
No, it's just crazy to think about, but it was great, just numbers to think of where this is going to cause problems in the auto industry as we
Yeah,
know it, because what's going to happen is not only are the batteries getting cheaper, the cars are
yes,
getting cheaper to make, the cars are lasting longer.
yeah,
You don't need the same type of service on them,
yes,
and they're more reliable, they're cheaper to operate. They, so what's going to happen is the dealers, the service departments aren't going to be the same. There's going to be massive cutbacks in where they're making money in the service. I'm not saying that EVs don't need service, okay,
yeah.
but it's
But
it's
it's
different,
nowhere the same.
very different. They don't need oil changes. They still need they still need wiper fluid. They still need tires. You probably
Mhm.
replace the tires about 20% more frequently than you do on a gas car.
Mhm.
There's a whole list of things that they do have to have done, but most of those things need to be done if we're not talking tires and windshield wipers, like at 150,000 miles. And
Imagine how much you spend on oil changes every 3 to 5,000 miles or 6 to 10,000 miles. Oil changes alone, for an 8-cylinder vehicle going to a dealership could be easily over $100 each. And you do 100, that stuff adds up. Timing belts, that could be a $1,200-1,300 job depending on the vehicle. Valve cover gaskets, tune-ups, valve cleaning, all of that stuff. You got to do that for that electric car to have its, because as soon as you get it tuned, as you drive, it's moving away from that perfect state. And,
right.
and its efficiency and its performance is starting to diminish. So you're always going to that cycle of trying to keep that car in perfect maintenance. EVs don't have to worry about it. You plug it in, you drive.
Yeah. So it's just think about this. So there's certain people out there that always buy new cars or they lease new cars, right? And they probably
Mhm.
keep a car 3-4 years typically, treat it back in, they're back in new, right? Well, if
Right.
those people start, instead of turning them in when they've got 40,000 miles on them, or right at when the warranty is going out at 36,000 miles, and they start
Mhm.
keeping them to 80 or 100,000 miles, it's really going to cut the number of new cars sales in the country.
Yeah.
And so it's going to cause issue, and the cost of cars is in the EV space is coming down because you have such crazy efficient competitors like Tesla and BYD out there that have really figured out the game. I think GM's figured it out.
Yeah.
Okay, but we were discussing that GM now claims that if you only factor in parts and labor and not their sunk costs of retooling facilities, they're making a profit on every EV they make now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they're making a gross profit, but they still, they have massive expenditures in the retooling of these facilities. I don't think Ford is there yet.
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think so either.
Or Stellantis, but you got companies like Volkswagen, Volvo, Hyundai, Kia, Tesla. They've all figured it out. The companies that need to figure out are Lucid and Rivian, right?
Yeah, that's
But they haven't figured it out quite yet either, and neither has Ford. But um, it'll be interesting to see how that game keeps playing on. All right, I want to move on to the longest range electric cars for 2025. I'm going to see if I'm not sure if this will be readable on my screen, but it's kind of there. I'm trying to make it a little bit bigger. I think that's about as big as I can make it there. So
very cool.
yeah, so the number one car, this is longest range EVs for 2025. Number one is the Lucid Air Dream Edition, 520 miles. They
That's
have another,
phenomenal.
yeah, there's another one called the Touring Edition that has 512 miles.
Mm.
Number two, Mercedes-Benz EQS sedan, 453. Okay, but here's the shocker. Number three is the Chevy Silverado,
Wow.
450 miles. Now, you're paying 90 to over 100 grand. 90,000 is supposed to be like the base sticker price before all the dealer add-ons. So,
Yeah,
I mean, you're not talking a cheap EV, but
yeah,
that's pretty good. Now here's a new vehicle for 2025, the Cadillac Escalade IQ,
yeah.
450 miles. That's a 750 horsepower
Wow,
SUV. Yeah,
that's
so
phenomenal.
big, big SUV,
Yeah.
450-mile range. That'll set you back about $150,000. Okay, so
But
that's
see, even if you're, I mean, why would you tow something with a vehicle like that? Because it would be too nice for me to tow anything unless I'm towing my yacht to the to the
right,
water.
right. Yeah, I once bought a Ford Expedition. This was a long time ago. And I
Mhm,
made sure I had the full towing package, the big engine, so I could tow
mhm.
a boat. And I never ended up buying the boat. And, I never ended up needing all that. But I had it if I needed it. I think I ever hooked anything to it to tow even once.
But you know
But
what they say about boats? The good part about a boat is the day you buy it and the day you sell it, because they say it's a lot of work to own a boat.
yeah,
So
yeah,
two good
yeah.
days.
You know, Bill and I have been working on a hangar project. So we're looking at um, using fractionalized real estate, doing tokenization of aircraft hangars. So
Wow.
there's a huge shortage of general aviation hangar space in the United States. And we've been looking down there in Florida. A lot of your smaller airports have
Hmm.
anywhere from a 2 to 5 year wait, and they have waiting lists of pilots or of aircraft owners that are anywhere from 100 to 500 aircraft long of people wanting it. In fact, you can't even get onto a waiting list unless you already own the aircraft.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you don't own a plane, you can't even get on the waiting list. So it's not a matter of can I get a plane and get a spot right away. You have to
Hmm.
already own the plane to get on a waiting list that can be years to get a hangar. And
Wow.
so it's interesting to kind of look at you know needs in different spaces. But that's me getting off topic again, and I don't know how that went from the Escalade to that. But Volkswagen ID.7, which I believe is a very large. I'm not familiar with the ID.7. It has a 437 range.
Hmm.
The Porsche Taycan. Okay, so when the first Porsche Taycans came out, they only had a range of about 200 miles. So
They
now
were
they're having
horrible.
with 421 miles.
I wonder how they did that because them and Audi both used to be horrible for the prices that they were selling at. Getting almost 200 miles or and less was is just ridiculous.
No, it's just kind of nuts. Um, Polestar 405 miles, Polestar 2. Model
Mhm.
S long range 405 miles. And then it starts dropping a lot from, we just had a few vehicles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 vehicles that were over 400 and one that was over 500. And now we're dropping down to under 360 real quickly.
Yeah.
We've got, what do we got? A Model S long range is 358. Interestingly, include the Fisker Ocean, but then it's a 2024 Fisker Ocean, and Fisker filed bankruptcy, so I don't
Yeah,
know
they're
why they
gone.
added this to the list. Model
Yeah.
X long range gets 348. Now we're going to start getting into some economical EVs. Okay,
Mhm.
so the Hyundai Ioniq 6 at 342 miles.
Mhm.
I'm gonna got a bunch more like BMW iX. I mean, that's expensive, 324. Chevy Blazer EV, 320. Kia EV9. Now that's not a cheap one, but it's like 318. Rivian R1T at 314. Now, I think there's some Rivians that have a 400-mile range. So I
Mhm.
think they didn't include the Rivian with the bigger battery. But
Yeah.
anyways, the Kia
And I think
EV6. Go
I
ahead.
think anything over 300 of 300 miles, but that sweet spot I think is going to be 400 miles. And
Mhm.
I think even though the initial price, I think the average consumer, the retail conversion is going to be with used vehicles coming back off a lease
Yep.
because their prices are going to drop so much because new vehicles prices are not going to go up that high because batteries are getting cheaper, everything's getting cheaper. And so let's say like that Chevy Equinox, there's a
Mhm.
level that they have that have bidirectional charging. When that thing comes back off a lease and I could get that vehicle do 300-400 miles on a charge and charge my house for $30,000-$40,000, that's going to be a game changer. I could go all week on one charge, don't need to have a charger at my condo. And then on the weekend, when I go grocery shopping, I'll plug that thing in and let it run. I
Mhm.
think that'll be where the average public starts adopting EVs in mass.
Well, you look at even now, there's so many Tesla Model 3s
Yeah.
available in the 20 to 25,000 range.
Yes.
That is a very, very nice car for
Yes.
that price
It
point.
really is.
And most people don't understand how reliable Teslas really are because
They
they
really
have gotten a bad rep because of all of the little service updates they do over the air. But every
Yeah.
time they do one of those over the air updates, they have to call to recall.
Yeah.
And so
But
they
yeah,
have this
it's a
huge list of recalls where they're constantly just simply upgrading your car with software. And
yeah.
Tesla's kind of given up on really worrying about, where that space is at. So I mean, and if you're buying a used Tesla, well, Elon got paid for it a long time ago.
Yeah.
So you're not benefiting Elon, if you dislike Elon, which I just kind of think is so funny. It's like, really,
Yeah.
but anyways, I'm looking for some other ones on here that are kind of in that affordable space, but the Mustang Mach-E 312, Kia EV6 is a cheaper one, 310. Nissan Ariya 304. The Ariya is kind of like, the Solterra and the Busy Forks for Toyota. They
Oh yeah.
just didn't have great range, but this is better. The Ariya with 304 is better, and they were around 240.
Hmm.
The Toyota ones, are also in that 240 range. It's like, it makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
So
let's
it's
just make it
ridiculous.
not as good as Tesla in by any metric,
Right. It
and
don't
try to
make
compete
sense.
and try to be the same price. Yeah,
But they
so
tried to sell off of their name alone, which, for ICE vehicles, Toyota, even going through car auctions, you paid a premium for Toyotas because
yeah.
people would buy it because it was a Toyota. But then you go into a different genre of vehicles and the vehicle is insufficient in every metric except for its price is high. It just didn't translate to the general public.
Now, They got the 2024 Honda Prologue on this list. Says up to 300 miles. Now that one is kind of interesting because the Prologue's been a huge winner for Honda, and it's
Mhm.
really a GM Ultium platform car that's branded Honda. So
So
they
is
made
that
it
the
under a
Equinox
JV.
or the Blazer?
I don't know that it matches either of them.
Okay.
It could, but I really,
I thought
I
they were
haven't.
all on the Ultium platform.
They are,
Mhm.
they
Yeah.
are, but I think
Mhm.
that has more to do with the battery tech than anything else.
Gotcha.
But
Mhm.
Hyundai Kona has about 258. You know, here's one. A Jaguar I-Pace only has 246. I
Yeah.
mean,
Stay
what's
home.
Jaguar thinking? Um,
And you would think after for these to be 2025s is ridiculous. For
now
anything to still be in the twos.
it is. Now the Jaguar I-Pace though is what the Waymos are. So the Waymo,
Oh, okay.
self-driving, that those are all Jaguar I-Paces.
That's
But
right. I remember seeing that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, pretty much all. But that was kind of an interesting list. They're
Mhm.
but they like I said, they did leave out the long range Rivians because I know Rivian, the R1T and the R1S can be purchased with a 400-mile range.
Range, yeah.
So they left it. What was kind of funny is it didn't show the Hummer EVs because I don't know what their range is, but they have that 200 kilowatt hour battery pack.
Battery pack, yeah.
I know they get over 300 miles, but I don't know exactly what it
Yeah,
is.
I still think even with all those batteries, I don't think it's just a brick trying to go through the air. It's just so boxy. You can't have any coefficient that's anything that would increase range. It's just so big,
Yeah, I
you
don't
know.
know if you saw my episode yesterday with Bill. We were talking about Senator Mark Kelly shot a video talking about how he sold his Tesla Model S and bought
Oh
a
yeah, I saw
GMC
that.
Yukon. It's like, what are you thinking? You're supposed to be pushing the Paris Climate Accord and all these
Yeah,
green
yeah.
initiatives, and you went from a 90 mile per gallon equivalent vehicle to 15. And you could have just, if you really wanted to say, or didn't want
Yeah,
Elon, you could have went and bought a Hummer. You
yeah.
could have bought a Hummer EV,
That's
and
right.
it would have been Union, and it would have been all this other. Or he could have bought a Chevy Silverado or something
He
like
didn't
that.
seem that happy. He was seem like he was happy to get rid of that Tesla, and I was like, yeah, the transition to me didn't make sense either.
So
Yeah.
yesterday we decided, and he was talking about how American the Yukon was. It's like you had a Tesla, the most American made car, and you switch to a Chevy, which is amazing. I think the Yukon ranked as the American made car that ranked 42nd in most American made, whereas like his Model S when he'd gotten it was probably number one.
Most of the parts are made in Mexico, Canada,
Mexico and Canada,
Mexico.
yeah,
Yeah.
but they're assembled in
Yeah.
Arlington, Texas. So right out,
Mhm.
made it's a they're assembled in Dallas, but
Mhm.
yeah, the Model Y is the most American made car. So yeah, but yeah, so some of these arguments just, like I said, it's like, oh, why are you attacking the most American made car? Why are you, I don't
Yeah.
know, and a car that's probably 70% likely to be driven by another liberal, you know? Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm just questioning the madness. I'm
Yeah.
questioning the
It's
madness. Well,
baffling. It's
yeah,
baffling.
and now they're gonna label people who go vandalizing Teslas as domestic terrorists and
Yeah.
prosecute them under some more extreme laws. Yeah, that's not gonna go
Yeah.
well. Just remember, folks, those
Yeah.
Teslas have cameras. Other cars don't.
Everywhere. All the way
Yeah,
around. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You're gonna be all over the internet. You do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. All right. So, speaking of solar, and like I was saying earlier, for those of y'all watching, this is the current weather conditions outside my office. Bobby and I were talking about this earlier. It was 80 degrees and sunny here yesterday. Today we have blizzard-like conditions. and it's supposed to keep snowing for the next 6 hours, and we might get anywhere from 5 to 10 inches of snow, and it's just crazy. So my
So,
solar panels are probably covered right now because this ice is really it's real heavy and wet. Um,
mhm.
yeah, so it's a little different. But I wanted to show a graphic on the states with the most solar. And so we talked a little bit about how there's currently like 22 Republican congressmen who are against repealing or a blanket repeal of the Inflation Reduction Act. And most of it has to do with, how the different states have been affected by different things. But this is where the states that have had the most solar go in. So number one was Texas. Number two is California. Now red is Republican, blue is Democrat states. But let me see. Number three is Florida. Not sure which one's number four because I'm not that good at checking that out. But let me see. It looks like there is no number four. Number five is Ohio. You look at some of these. Six, Arizona. But most of these states are red states. Um,
Yeah.
number four was Illinois. Okay. Number 19 was Iowa, which I'm over here in Nebraska and I have solar, but I think a lot of this is also large scale solar.
Mhm.
So it's not just people having it on their roof,
Yeah, more of
but
the solar farms.
it's interesting that I had found that on LinkedIn as well. And um, it's funny because somebody was commenting that they drove through the panhandle of Florida, and apparently there's a lot of windmills. I'm not really sure why people are putting windmills in Florida. I don't think it's really all that windy.
Well, we're close to ocean on both sides, so there's usually a breeze
Yeah, but
almost
it
always.
it's not like here where we have a steady 20 miles per hour, it seems like
Oh
all the
yeah,
time.
no.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
if you go to California and you drive over to like Palm Springs, there are ugly, ugly windmills everywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
But it is really windy on the way from LA to Palm Springs. It is really windy and those things are just going like crazy.
That
Okay.
is.
I mean, it's a good location for them. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, you drive across Iowa all along I-80. Oh my God, they're everywhere.
Wow.
As far as you can see, it's that they're they're turning and creating energy and all that. And I'm not as big on wind, even though I do live in a really windy place. But
Mhm.
solar is something that I think has more attractiveness.
Mhm.
And you look at all the battery farms that are going in with solar projects
Mhm.
and different ways you can store stuff. And we were talking, like if you're going to be building truck stops and you're going to be having the power capability to power trucks, you're going to have solar farms. You're going to have batteries, and the
Mhm.
batteries then you can store enough energy to actually
Yeah.
power the trucks, and you can stabilize how energy flows to the grid
Mhm.
and comes
That's
from the
right.
solar to provide that power, because obviously you're not just going to have it come running down the transmission line
Yeah.
and not have some kind of storage there. We were talking about the idea if you did the battery swap technology and you had enough of the truck batteries that kept getting swapped out,
Mhm.
that you'd be storing all that energy pumping in from the grid. Okay,
Right.
so you could consistently predict what non-green energy you were pumping across. So say, you got some place, burning LNG down the road, but you got some solar, which, obviously really relies on the battery stuff. But then you have all of these batteries from the trucks that are
Mhm.
charging that can help make sure that the first one coming off the line to the next truck that needs it is fully charged.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you always have that supply of energy to keeping the trucks going. But like,
But
it's certainly.
I think I don't know if you've ever been in a data center of any kind.
Mhm.
In IT, we're in them all the time. And it's just rows and rows and rows of computers and servers and storage units and communication devices. And the only thing you know when you walk in the door, it's going to be very loud because when you start pressing those network servers or whatever it is that they're doing, the fans on those, because computers don't make any sound. What you hear is the fans trying to keep them cool. And then you have the air conditioning pumping into that storage place to keep it as cold as ice. So even if you go to the Bahamas and it's 100 degrees outside, you got a coat on inside the data center. So I mean, that thing is just consuming power. And so if
Mhm.
AI and crypto and all these other innovations that are coming to market, they're going to need so much power so quickly. You know, it takes forever to build a power plant of any kind.
Yes.
But if you could have people that have solar on their homes and have power walls in their house, some kind of battery storage in their house, and you're tapping into that and you're doing it intelligently so everybody has what they need when they're needed, then you could help, you know, kind of balance out these things. Because it's like data centers, you know, they can handle the whole planet, but they're going to have their peak loads and their, you know, their downtimes also. So, you know, because everything has their rhythm, if you have computers managing all these things, then you wouldn't have to be in such a rush to build all of these power plants to cover all this AI stuff, I
Right.
think. Yeah.
Well, I think there's some alternatives, but you look at how Amazon and Google and Facebook or Meta are all investing in nuclear, and
Yeah.
they intend to all go big into the nuclear energy space because they have to have
Got
the
to have
power.
power. They're trying to resurrect, was it 3 Mile Island or some of these
Yep.
that have been
Hmm.
defunct years ago, trying because they need power and they know they can't build it. You could probably refurbish one faster than you could
Hmm.
build one from the ground. But yeah, I think net zero, because I think when these data centers come online, I think net zero will make a comeback because they'll need the power. They won't be able to say, and especially because, you know, you paid for your solar, you paid
Hmm.
for your EV. If you plug it into the grid, they making money hand over fist because they have no investment in it. You're keeping it up, you
Yeah.
know. And so to them, it's just, well, we're just making revenue by you wholesaling it to them. They're retailing it to somebody else. That's a win-win.
Yeah. Oh, there's no question. It's going to be interesting to see where all this goes because nuclear isn't as cheap as
No,
people think,
no,
but we need energy sources. And I
yes,
love the idea of our country being energy independent.
yeah.
Okay. And, there's a lot of things I think we need to be independent in manufacturing medical goods. Okay. We
Mhm.
need to be, there's a whole lot of things that our country needs to not rely on foreign governments. And a big part of this is energy. I mean, look at this whole thing with the tariffs and in Ontario threatening to cut off power to some
Yeah.
U.S. states. It's like, what are you guys, a bunch of dumbasses? I mean, you really, I mean, and then the math
Mm.
they tried to say. They said they were trying to say it was going to cost the average homeowner like an extra $100 a month on their bill. It's like, no, it's not, because
Yeah.
that power, that was a 1 cent increase, 25%. It was a one
Mhm.
cent increase. It was maybe a 5%. I mean, I don't know what somebody's bill is, but if they have a $400 electric bill, which just seems insane to me.
Yeah.
Um,
What are
it
you
would
doing in
be,
there?
yeah, I mean, that'd be like $20 difference,
Yeah.
not $100. Okay,
Not
so that
100 bucks.
was kind of you know out there. Thank you, New Period Chat Radio. Um, so I want to move on to a company that I don't know if you're real familiar with them. Workhorse is a company that makes electric vans out of Indiana. Okay,
Mhm.
and
Conversion bands, like, right?
no, 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 I got a nice picture here. I'll share this. They make like UPS, FedEx style
Oh,
vans.
okay. Yeah.
You know, and so they be a competitor to Rivian in this space. Okay,
Mm.
and I think Rivian's really kind of figured it out. So, I love seeing the Rivian vans. People who've driven them just love those Rivian vans. But Workhorse is a competitor to them. They've been making EVs, and they have a new CEO, and it's interesting. He says we're a real company and not a PowerPoint EV company, which I get that. So many, I mean, you look at even Mullen Automotive has really not delivered a whole lot of vehicles, and they're on the NASDAQ. They're
It's
delivering
crazy.
some commercial vehicles, but they're not really delivered a whole lot. But they own a lot of assets. You look at Nikola. Now they went bankrupt, but they
Went
never
bankrupt.
really delivered
Never put
much.
out much. Yeah.
Yeah, Go EV, which is the name of the stock, was Canoe. Canoe's basically defunct now. And there keeps being more and more companies like that. But Workhorse had this deal. So the Postal Service has been driving those Jeeps that have been made by Grumman. They've been driving those for 30, 40 years. And um, there was a bid to replace those with EVs. And Workhorse, it looked like, was going to get that. And it ended up going to Oshkosh Defense. So Oshkosh Defense got that contract for the Postal Service. Okay.
Is that the one that looks
And
like a baseball hat with wheels?
that was the
That
Canoe.
that was a canoe. Okay, there you
Yeah.
go.
But I've not even ever seen, I've never really looked for it either, but Osh Defense mail truck. Let's
Yeah,
see if I can.
I saw an image of one of the newer electric, and it just looked like mostly
Oh, you know
glass
what?
out
It
the
does look
front.
like a baseball cap. Okay. Oh man. Oh man, this is hideous. Holy
That's what I
crap.
said. It
I
looks
used to
like
joke
garbage.
about how one of the problems with EVs was they try to make them look bad. But
Yeah,
crap.
that's just horrible.
Wow. Wow. You're gonna know what that is when it's coming down the road, aren't you?
You
Man,
won't be
that's
able
a
to hear it,
distinct
but
look.
you'll be able to see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All it's
You
got to
know,
do is be efficient.
one of my tennis friends took a job as a mail carrier, and he
Mhm.
was getting hit an average of 3 times a year, where people would back out of driveways into him and all this other stuff. I mean, he was
Wow.
almost always stopped when he was in an accident, but
Yeah.
people were constantly hitting the mail trucks.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's crazy.
that looks like a pretty heavy duty bumper on the front, though. You know,
Yeah. So it'll take a hit.
um, it's just surrounded all with like the things they use on go-karts,
Oh yeah.
the bumpers
Like
go all the way
a rubber
around,
stamp.
just
Yeah.
surround it. Yeah. So you just bounce off. Man, those are hideous.
That's
Well,
horrible.
good on um wow. Workhorse sued the Postal Service over not getting the deal. The new CEO actually stopped the lawsuit. Okay. They thought it was a distraction, but the new CEO says that UPS and FedEx expect these trucks to last 15 to 20 years and go 15 to 20,000 miles per year, carrying 7 or 8,000 pounds of payload.
Wow.
And he doesn't really think that their current model can handle that kind of requirement. Now they're going to upgrade it. They're working on that, but he doesn't believe that the original vehicles they built really were capable of handling that. And I thought that's kind of a big thing for the CEO to come out and admit, but they're fixing that. He's come out and he said, here's what's wrong with our company. We're fixing these problems.
Well, that's
But
nice, but what is it? Is it the battery? Is it the motors? What is it?
I think it's actually the quality of the
The build
vehicle. I'm
itself.
thinking it's probably more like suspension and stuff like that. I'm
I
not
see.
I'm not
Yeah.
thinking he's talking so much.
The
Um,
electrics. It's not the
oh, he
electric.
says certain parts of the electronics are not up to snuff. Neither were the
Wow.
windshield wipers, defogging system, lamps, and reflective safety devices.
Oh,
Um,
secondary systems then.
yeah. Um, let me see. He actually decided to recall all of the C1000s that Workhorse had delivered this year. It cost the company 1.1 million in the short term, leaving them with negative revenue of about just under 600,000 for the quarter. But they posted an $81 million loss last
Wow.
year, but they have
Wow.
230 million cash in the bank.
There you go.
Yeah, so yeah, so
Well, I mean,
they're all right.
if you're voluntarily recalling your stuff because you yourself see that it's a problem and you're making it better, then you should have a customer for life. You
You'd
can't
think
really ask for
so.
more than that.
No, you can't.
You can't ask for more than that.
Yeah, so they've done some changes. They've gotten rid of some people at the executive and vice president level, and got cut some costs. Hopefully they'll stick around. I was really hopeful because I really thought they were going to get that postal service contract. I remember
Mhm.
all that coming about, and it was really bad for their stock and a lot of other stuff when they ended up not getting it. And I have no idea what the real reason was for that happening. All right, it's time to talk about this new thing. It's the Dodge Charger EVs have started arriving at dealerships, and but so far they're only coming in one color. It's called Ludicrous.
Never heard of it before.
Yeah, Ludicrous.
Ludicrous. Wow,
Yeah,
it's pretty though.
yeah, it is a sharp looking blue.
Wow, that's pretty.
Yep. Let's see what it says here.
The reviews on it online hasn't been that great. I'm gonna have to tell you.
Well, the thing is, it's supposed to be replacing a muscle car. It's supposed to sound loud and all
Yeah.
that. And I think,
Yeah.
that's one of the things, we all are used to that loud sound of a powerful engine. It's like NASCAR and all that, and it's just not
It's not the
that's one thing
same.
EVs just don't have. You got this super quiet ride and you can talk to somebody, you can talk on your phone. I remember one of my kids wanted me to go test drive this modified Ford Mustang a few years ago, and it had 500 horsepower or 550 horsepower as modified sitting at the Ford dealership. And I was like, there's no way I could ever have a conversation on the phone with somebody in this car.
Yeah.
I mean, it
All the
was
noise.
so loud in there and
Yeah.
so loud outside. I mean, everybody was going to know, you were coming.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
it's like, look, it's all great and all to have all that. That was probably 10 years ago, but it was nuts to, how loud the car was. But, that's part of it is now, we're going to have a quiet world as EVs take over. Yeah. And
well, I don't know. They're getting rid of all the EPA regulations. So is that going to make the cars louder or just more pollutant devices?
just more polluting. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
going to make them more polluting. It's just those EPA things are going to, that was sort of the EV mandate. Okay. So it was going to force everybody to stop making combustion cars because of air quality regulations. I don't really think that's going away. Okay. EVs have momentum. I don't think they're going away. And this
The
Dodge
horse is out
Charger,
the barn. Yeah.
so they have a Scat Pack model with 670 horsepower. That ought to,
I bet that thing moves.
oh God, it just may not be loud. I mean, that's gonna be
Yeah. It'll
crazy
sneak up
fast.
on you and run you over.
Yeah,
Wow.
Ludicrous blue. They've got some
That is
other
nice.
colors coming out, and their names are After Dark, Destroyer Gray, Diamond Black, Peel Out, Red Eye, Triple Nickel, and White Knuckle.
I can't wait to see these. Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I hope it does well. I hope everybody that's trying to go green. I hope they have a great future because the more the more options we have, the better the price they're going to be, because the competition will bring prices down. Everybody will drive green, and at some point, ice isn't going to make sense anymore.
No, the Scat Pack version is $73,000.
I'm losing you.
The Scat Pack version is $73,000 with 0 to 60 in 3.3.
Ooh, and that's a
Yeah.
big vehicle. That's not a tiny car.
3.3. The RT model starts at 60,000 with 496 horsepower.
That's really not that bad considering.
Mm-mm. And Dodge launched a 7,500 national consumer cash rebate on all 2024 models. Oh, they got some other incentives. They've got a $3,000 National Dodge Performance Days bonus and $2,000 Conquest cash, so you can save up to $12,500.
Wow.
And
Very
0% interest for 72 months.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
so they're trying. I'll give them credit. They're making an effort, right?
Yeah,
Anyways,
absolutely.
all right.
You got to
Well,
do that nowadays.
yeah. Well, folks, I
Yeah.
appreciate everybody chiming in. Bobby, I want to thank you for coming on today. You came out on short notice. I'd meant to ask you like a week ago. Mike had let me know, and I just let it slip my mind. I even said something to Billy. I said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to reach out to see if Bobby's available." And
Well, anytime I wake up, I'm almost 70 years old. Anytime I wake up and have a pulse, you can call on me.
there we go. All right. Well, folks, everybody, thanks for listening to us banter today, and hopefully I'll be back without this crazy white stuff blowing around tomorrow. I'll be curious to see. I mean, it's supposed to be really icy tomorrow. This snow is going to take a couple days to get rid of. But anyways, all right. Well, everyone, have a great day, and I'll be back with Bill.